Help Wanted 2 just got a free update that teases the next game for Five Nights at Freddy's, Secret of the Mimic. And when I tell you that this update is possibly one of the biggest lore drops in FNAF history, I'm not exaggerating. Do you remember when Help Wanted 1 was updated to tease the release of Security Breach? Imagine that, but way bigger and based. But what was in the update? How was this the biggest lore reveal ever? Well, Slices, put on your aprons and let's bake ourselves a theory. Was it like a huge DLC or something? No, it was an update, but it was a fairly substantial free update and puzzle that made for a very good teaser. Here's everything they added to Help Wanted 2. Upon opening the game, Mystic Hippo has a new line, similar to how she would give us hints for the memory poppets in the base game to give us access to the Princess Quest ending. Instead, she says this. Or this save file should be 100%.
Something has changed. The forgotten button has materialized here, in my mystical booth.
Button is...
It awaits you in the distant past.
Ayo. And, well, that's cryptic and confusing. I admittedly didn't know where to access something from the past. But luckily, if you enter a minigame and don't find it and give up and come back to the lobby, she then says this.
A key piece of advice for your second nightly work. Start with 1. Stop. At 8. Stop. Take 2. Stop. Return 2.
This is a much clearer hint, and in case you're not sure what that means, of all the minigames that have a Night 2, one of them has a numbered keypad, the same one you punch in 1987 to get the Puppet Poppet. Puppet Poppet. Puppet Poppet Poppet. But now some things have been added, namely this card featuring Jackie on the desk. Interesting that she's at sister location, but we'll mention that later. But now if you solve Mystic Hippo's puzzle on the numbers, or just remember 1979 from the Secret of the Mimic teaser, and punch that in, you receive this white tiger plushie. Yes, it's huge. For those who know, for those who don't, we'll get there. Upon retrieving it, once you re-enter the lobby, Mystic Hippo has this to say.
Something has changed. A hidden performer is ready to take a bow.
Looking around, the white tiger plush is now next to the character gallery, and inside there's a new model, one for the Mimic, specifically its costume at the secret ending of Ruin.
Must be spry. Tomatoes are in short supply. We toss whatever they buy. A solid 8 will make one cry.
But if we take the ball gun and shoot it at the Mimic, this happens. And the front doors of the area open. Once you exit it, you're in a very dark room but extended tile, with a cutout of the carpet from the Secret of the Mimic teaser, alongside Jackie's box from the same teaser. Once you crank the lever and play the song, it opens, quote unquote. The screen goes black and this plays. Time to play! Which is a line from Jackie according to people who played the demo at PAX, not me because I wasn't able to go, but whatever, I'm not jealous. It does reveal a jigsaw puzzle missing its pieces on the table. 2 different pictures depending on if you're wearing the mask or not, but there's only one piece on the table. We then have to go throughout the game and find the remaining puzzle pieces to solve this jigsaw puzzle. And in case you're lazy and don't want to look yourself, or you're very sick like I was and didn't feel like bothering, here's every single spot. Next to ruined Candy Cadet, on this destroyed arcade cabinet, on the bottom shelf of Arts and Crafts Loft, on your side of the desk in Endo Warehouse, under the flashlight in Bonnie Bowl, on the left side in Breaker Room Funtime Freddy, behind the last clipboard of the hard mode of Carousel, under the battery in ruined DJ Music Man, on this table post in Fazzer Blast Western, behind the Sodaroni can in Fizzy Faz Night 4, and behind the spray bottles in First Aid Lefty. As you complete the jigsaw puzzle, like I mentioned, 2 different pictures begin to appear. Without the mask on, you see a white van, and with the mask on, you see a pretty fantastical gift shop looking building with something looming in the background. But once you complete the puzzle, both of those set pieces appear in the background depending on whether or not you're wearing the mask. And this is where the final puzzle presents itself. Approaching the van, the back doors open, revealing the Mexus console inside with a keypad. 1979 doesn't do anything, trust me, I tried. But if you go over to the gift shop, it has a mailbox with the code 4625. Punching this code into the Mexus console, you get this ending. And then, yeah, it's just credits. It's an incredibly strange ending. So what the hell does any of this mean? I think I have to accept that this cave was not a part of the desert floor. I made it to a new level. But now, how do I get out of here? It just keeps going. At least I have this in the meantime. Have you heard that the flavored air category is becoming the leading alternative to vaping and smoking? It's a whole new movement towards better habits, led by the sponsor of today's video, Fume. Perfect. Let's be super clear right at the top. Fume is not a vape. There's no vapor, nothing to charge, no nicotine, or anything like that. I want to be super clear here. This is not a vape. Fume is a flavored air device that utilizes these cores that you breathe air through. With flavored air, you can satisfy your oral fixation through a passive diffusion system that utilizes no electronics, no vapor, and no combustion. But the best part for me about it is how good of a fidget it is. It's easy to spin, clicks when you adjust it, and you can even get chewable silicone toppers, so you can just chew on the end of it. And I am a chew fidgeter. This has saved me so much gum. This holiday season, you can give the gift of better habits with Fume. Head to tryfume.com/rytoast and use code rytoast for a free Fume topper when you order a journey pack. It's the perfect addition to make your gift even more special. And if you're lucky, you could even win one of Fume's limited edition gold-plated devices this holiday season. Again, tryfume.com/rytoast, or just scan the QR code on screen to grab yours now and make someone's holiday unforgettable. Thanks again to Fume for sponsoring today's video. All right, let's keep on trekking. Wait, that's not a water drop. That's a water flow. If water's flowing, it's going somewhere. Well, first of all, before we get into the analysis of this, I think it's a safe bet to say that 4625 is a teaser for the release date of Secret of the Mimic, April 6th, 2025. 4625 in how Americans write their dates. A lot of this begins to make more sense if you've read the books. But a lot of it, if not all of it, was in relation to the Tales from the Pizzaplex story, The Mimic. Something that seems very closely related to Secret of the Mimic for obvious reasons. I'll go through a very quick summary of that story right now, and maybe you'll be able to pick up what I mean by the fact that they're connected. The Mimic follows Edwin Murray, a man who first found success by making a robotic vacuuming unit and using those funds to purchase an abandoned factory and a Queen Anne mansion out front with his wife, in the hopes that they could renovate the both of them for their soon-to-be son. But a year after his son David was born, Edwin's wife died, and he decided he wouldn't be able to renovate both the mansion and the factory, so he converted the factory into a place that him and his son could live in full time. His son David was very sweet, but also a 5-year-old, and Edwin, being a depressed workaholic bad father, didn't like to spend time with him. David had a white tiger plush that he would play with, but he needed something more, so Edwin created the Mimic, a robot that could copy anything David did, in the hopes that it would act as a sort of learning playmate for David, and it worked. But unfortunately, like I mentioned, Edwin is a bad father, and in this factory that he forced his son to live in, he didn't lock the front doors that exit out into a highway. So one morning he finds that the doors are open, and as he runs out, he sees David chasing a ball into the highway and gets hit by a white van. David's death sends Edwin into a grief spiral, and one day he sees the Mimic holding David's white tiger plushie and copying David's movements. But seeing that was too much, and Edwin beat the robot senseless until eventually abandoning all of it. The story then goes on to show that some Fazbear people were called to collect all the things Edwin was working on, but that's not important right now, because I'm assuming a lot of what I just said is beginning to ring a lot of bells with a lot of you. First of all, I gotta get this out of the way. I'm not saying the white van puzzle is supposed to be the white van that hit David, but like, is it? Because that's crazy work if the first teaser we get for Secret of the Mimic is the car that hit David. Okay. I think the Mexus console being inside of it is maybe supposed to be the reason why it's not there. Oh god, I don't have this written in the script. I just thought about it right now. The Mimic is copying David. The van killed David. Is the Mimic putting Mexus in the van? Not because it's representative of FNAF taking the Mexus unit away from the factory, but instead the Mimic sees the Mexus unit as his white van. That's crazy. A couple of things right off the bat that are scripted. This white tiger plush that we see seems to be the one David had, which is cluing us into something incredibly important this update brings us. This is the massive lore reveal that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. If you'll notice, I showed a billboard during that story recap. On Dawko's charity livestream last Saturday, there were a couple teases that I made a whole podcast episode episode and short all about. One of them was a GIF of this very update, but another one happened when he was playing an updated version of 5 Laps at Freddy's. Within it, they added a billboard. This one that says Murray Co. Hug Robotic Vacuuming Unit. This is the vacuum that Edwin Murray made. And this, paired with this white tiger plushie and everything else we're going to go into, seems to me that the games are unambiguously saying, hey, the Tales from the Pizzaplex stories take place in the game's timeline, full stop. Granted, before I get too excited here, yes, it is possible that the stories still are not one-to-one with the games. After all, like we've mentioned several times, in the Silver Eyes, there's a lot of direct connections from the Silver Eyes to the games, yet those are two very different stories. With the evidence we have in front of us, I would say it's way more likely that at least the Mimic-related stories of Tales from the Pizzaplex take place within the games. Moving forward, I think I'm just gonna assume that Tales from the Pizzaplex stories are one-to-one with the games until proven otherwise. And yes, for those of you who've been following the channel for a long time, I already posted this to social media, but I'd be a coward if I didn't post this here. Here's a clip from a podcast episode about a year and a half ago.
I mean, hell, who knows? Again, I've said for a long time, if any representation of of Tiger Rock specifically, Edwin Murray's name pop up in a FNAF game, I will do the Stan is Wrong song on Twitter, like the next day.
I'm right, and I was wrong. I'm singing the Rise Wrong song. I shouldn't have taken that chance. Now here's my remorseful dance. But back to the update and what it's telling us about Secret of the Mimic specifically. If you remember what property Edwin and his wife bought at the beginning of the Mimic, this other puzzle makes a lot of sense. It's a Queen Anne styled mansion, and in the picture it's much bigger than what we see in game, but behind it seems to be a factory. I think these are the two buildings that Edwin and his wife bought, but there's something definitely different about this mansion. It seems to have been renovated into a Fazbear merchandise store, which is odd to say the least. After all, there's literally neon signs that say masks and gifts on it, and this center window is of utmost importance, I think. It's a stained glass mural depicting what I think seems to be a traveling show of some sort, denoting this wagon. But if you notice the top, this is the craziest part to me. There's Fredbear and Bonnie. Not Spring Bonnie, but Bonnie. And not only are they there, but they're paired with a sun and a moon. So this is telling us a lot. At some point, Fredbear and regular Bonnie were possibly a show? To be frank with you, I don't know what this is trying to tell us. But I have a feeling we're not meant to know yet, but rather this might be explained in Secret of the Mimic. Frankly, a lot of this update doesn't give us any answers, but instead way more questions. But before you get angry about that, that's a good thing. This is a free update that's teasing an upcoming game. Of course, it's not going to give us answers about the game, but it's priming us on what questions to be asking when going into the new game. So if that's what I think, what questions is this update raising? Well, for one, it seems like Mexis was created by Edwin, or at least existed around the time the Mimic was created. But then that begs the question of why. The Mexis console does not appear in the story The Mimic at all, so we have no point of reference in the books about it. And if it was created by Edwin, then seemingly this either happened during a blank stretch of time that we don't have on Edwin's life, which does exist, or it's something the games are introducing that the books never do, which could introduce some variance in the stories here. Another question is, like I mentioned earlier, this seems to be the two buildings that Edwin and his wife bought, the factory and the mansion. Although Edwin was working for Fazbear and making them spare animatronics, all we know is that after Edwin went MIA following the death of his son, Fazbear sent teams to collect what he was working on for Fazbear. We have no idea why his mansion was then converted into a Fazbear attraction. That's news to us. So the why is a definite question here. We also have to wonder how the Mimic gets from this establishment to the basement of FNAF 6, especially if the games are going to further establish that the Mimic was created in this factory. But ultimately, this is the big question that I have not mentioned up until this point that is centered around Secret of the Mimic. Where the hell does Jackie fall into all of this? Because at the end of this update, you unlock one more thing. In the gallery, you can access the model for Jackie. And like I mentioned, her picture appears on the desk in the sister location Foundation's secret office now. And let me tell you, being able to see her in-game, she is massive and terrifying. She's way bigger than I thought she was going to be. But Jackie is never once mentioned in the Mimic. She's not mentioned in the entirety of Tales from the Pizzaplex. But with this update and Secret of the Mimic, Jackie seems inextricably linked to the story of the Mimic. We're just not sure how yet. My best guess is the Mimic was originally used to maybe replace Jackie's programming when it was initially brought on by Fazbear, and then maybe it was planned to join Circus Baby's Pizza World and went horribly wrong. But frankly, that's just kind of a hunch based on what the Mimic does, what Jackie looks like, and the fact that I think Jackie would fit perfectly in Circus Baby's Pizza World, and her picture's on the desk. But that picture might just be to clue in players to punch in the code in that keypad. It's all very unclear right now, because this update really doesn't give us any answers, it just gives us way more questions, which is perfect for a teaser for an upcoming game. But I will say, this update and 5 Laps at Freddy's does pretty unambiguously tell us one thing. The Tales from the Pizzaplex books are in continuity. At this point, they pretty much have to be, or else Scott is pulling the biggest troll he ever has. And if you're not sure what those stories being involved in the timeline mean for the FNAF lore, don't worry, I've got you covered next week. But in the meantime, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you think about this update in the comments below. I'll probably be playing it again live tonight on Twitch and on the main channel, and probably in VR, because hopefully by Friday, I don't have this stomach bug anymore. Because there's a lot more to talk about this update. I didn't even get to the fact that the Tiger Rock plushie has flesh in it if you clip inside the model. What the hell is that about? Once again, thank you to Fume for sponsoring today's video. Don't forget to go to tryfume.com/rytoast to get a free topper with your journey pack today. But in the meantime, if you want a video about my thoughts on Help Wanted 2 before this update, last week I just made a whole video of it because I can't stress to you how crazy it is that because the announcement was in Dalco's charity livestream on Saturday and the update was Tuesday, within like 4 days, Help Wanted 2 went from essentially a solved game to one of the biggest unsolved mysteries so far in FNAF. If you want your fan art featured on the channel, make sure to share with #ToastArt. A huge thank you to the best channel members, the Dough Risers, and until next time, as always, stay toasty, slices.